Welcome to Real Talk. I am your host, Paul Britton. With me this evening is Sergio Barrera. Sergio!
If you choose to accept them, I love it.
Yes.
I hope I won't destruct in 5 minutes, but
I hope not either. That would be very disturbing, although it might go viral. So,
hey, there you go.
all right.
More,
I don't
more
want.
eyes on the prize, right?
No, I don't want that to happen. As far as you know. All right. Sergio, how have you been the last few weeks?
Been good. Working on trying to balance life between the craziness of work and then doing stuff like going to the occasional movie now and then.
And
But overall, pretty good. Hope you've been good yourself.
Yeah, we're the ones that are blessed for when you do actually get out to see a movie. So I appreciate you going out this week.
Well, as I've done at certain points in the past couple of years, I'm about to send you a list. So
okay, and
there's some stuff coming up.
We're going to do the end of show spoiler now because you're not going to be around at the end of the show.
Okay.
You're going to be joining us for both Ballerina and Life of Chuck. You are originally we're just going to come out and do Ballerina. I said if you're coming to do Ballerina, you're also doing Life of Chuck.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Heads up.
I am doing so willingly.
Yeah. So. And by the way, the reason why I forced him, I said you're doing Life of Chuck is because it's a Stephen King movie, and so he's the biggest Stephen King fan.
That's The Long Walk. Life of Chuck is
Stephen King also.
Really?
Yes, that's why.
That's a blind spot for me, which is weird.
Yeah. So. Like if you go back into our conversation, I literally said, "Have you ever read A Life of Chuck?" And you're like, "No, I'm not even aware of it," or something along those lines. And then I said, "Okay, well, he's got a movie." But Long Walk, I mean, we are absolutely long. I've been waiting for Long Walk for 30 years, my guy. So no, that is a done deal. But no, Life of Chuck is all. I'm just going to throw it out there. No reaction from you, please. Wes Anderson's new movie, the Phoenician Scheme, is also getting a wide release that weekend. Just be stoic and don't respond, and just know that I'm seeing 3 weekend movies that weekend. And so, if you want to happen to hop on and do 3, also, you're more than welcome.
I will definitely keep that in mind.
Okay. Okay. So the reason why you're here today is because of Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning.
Yes.
I believe we've done the past 2 at least the last one. I think we did the prior one also,
Fallout,
which would have been Fallout, right? I think.
Yeah, no, I agree. I believe we did, given the timing of those 3, the last 2 films. Then I would say we absolutely more than likely did. In fact, I want to say for Fallout, we kind of did a bit of a run through the first few
for sure.
And as we, I can tell you I watched Dead Reckoning. I was in Houston in October of 2023,
I think. Yeah.
And it was literally one of those things where I'm like, I've got time to kill. I've been looking forward to this movie. I'm gonna watch it here. And it's one of those rare moments, Paul, where I look forward to something now because my movie changing habits have changed dramatically, as you know.
Yeah.
And so it takes a lot for me to go, okay, I'm going to cut time out of my weekend to go. And I know that sounds pretentious, forgive me, but life being the way it is, this was a movie I was going to set time for. And then was it during our last conversation or somewhere in between, somebody mentioned, or I think I was maybe listening to a review, but the runtimes matter now for me.
Oh, wow. Okay. Is it because of a shrinking bladder or just a shrinking?
Well, no. Thank goodness we're not there yet.
Okay. All right.
The day is coming. But no, just because I don't know if you agree, but let me just ask you: do you look at runtimes and go, okay, I need to strategically schedule when I'm going to go do this?
It depends on how busy my weekend is, what's going on.
Right.
So the answer is not usually because I don't usually have a busy weekend. But
and just as a quick rabbit trail, I promise to get back. Just a funny moment. This past weekend, I was looking at, as I do at my my collection of movies that I have still that I need to watch that I haven't seen.
Yeah.
And in doing so, I came across on Apple TV Plus, there's the director's cut of Napoleon.
Oh, yeah.
And I laughed because as I read the blurb, it was like, it adds a spectacular 48 minutes. I'm like, that is not spectacular.
No.
You're going to add 48 minutes to an already 3-hour movie.
Yeah.
That just made me laugh.
What's interesting is that, I haven't seen it, but one of Ridley Scott's other movies, what is it called? The Kingdom of God, or
Kingdom of Heaven, yeah.
Kingdom of Heaven, apparently has a director's cut out
It
there.
does. Yeah.
And
As
apparently,
does The Martian.
oh really? I'm
As
not
does The Martian.
okay.
Yeah.
The Kingdom of Heaven one is supposed to be like really, really, really fantastic.
It changes the entire story.
Yeah.
I mean, when I talk about
Which that movie needed. So
yes,
yeah.
it's the plot trajectory that shifts entirely.
Uh-huh.
So you should. I don't know how you felt about the original, but if you enjoyed it,
No.
check out the director's cut, because it really, you sit there going, not the story I saw last time.
Okay. Well, that might be a good thing for it, because I did not enjoy
I think
it
it
the
is.
first time around.
I think it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. We're not here to talk about any of that, though. We're here
Exactly.
to talk about Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning,
Yes,
which was, as you mentioned, very long. Before we get into things that actually are pertinent to the movie, such as its very long runtime, I want to talk about things that are completely unrelated to actual enjoyment of the movie. The first thing is, I love the title of this movie. The last movie was called Dead Reckoning. Originally, when it was released, it was called Dead Reckoning Part 1.
Right.
And then they just decided, you know what, fuck that. We're going to call that one Dead Reckoning. This one, call it The Final Reckoning. I have a theory, and I just want your reaction to my theory, that they called it Dead Reckoning, and then after the movie was released, somebody said, you know what, we probably should have just called it Final Reckoning Part 1. And then somebody was like, fuck, that is a better title. And they just decided to drop the Part 1, Part 2 thing, and then just call the last one Final Reckoning, because it's a better title than Dead Reckoning.
I would agree with that. Now, I know Dead Reckoning is actually like a nautical term.
Oh, really?
And related to submarines, which is central to the plot. Because I looked it up. That's the only reason I know, Paul.
Okay, interesting.
That's the only reason I know. And it was one of those things where I could see both being the case, because it gets an offhand line of dialogue in the first film.
Okay.
And then after that, you're like, why would it be called this? You know?
Yeah.
And so I would not disagree with that. If it ever came out like in a combo package, it would just be titled The Final Reckoning. So
Final Reckoning Part 1 and 2. I think that would have been the way to go. Second, unrelated to anything, observation is, did we get enough Tom Cruise running in this movie? Because I feel like we got one really good scene of running, and that was it. And I kind of am wondering, did we need more
compared to the first part?
Yeah,
where there was too much of that. And I only say that on a rewatch, which was like 3 days before I saw the sequel.
All right.
This one, you only got what you needed, and it served the film.
Right.
And because it had become sort of comic to those of us who've been part of the franchise. And that really only started like in the last 4 films, where that really became a thing.
Yes.
I think that it happened when it was needed.
Mm-hmm.
And it was perfectly fine. I was glad in hindsight, as I thought about it, I was like, okay, yeah, I'm glad it didn't become, because that had the potential of just becoming a huge distraction. Mm-hmm. Because every time he runs, especially when you rewatch Dead Reckoning, you're like,
he's running.
Yeah, the clip on YouTube will now be even longer.
Right, right.
So I'm glad they kept it to the minimal amount they did.
Yeah. I don't know. I could have used more, but
that's a great question.
I understand. I understand what you're saying. Okay, so now on to actual movie related stuff. So this movie picks up about 2 months after the end of Part 1.
Yes,
and it feels like the only reason why they gave us 2 months gap time was to give Luther a chance to both make techie stuff and get sick.
Yeah.
Because one of the things that frustrates me about this movie is some of its disconnect from the prior movie, while trying to forcefully reconnect to episodes 1 through 6. And it's an odd tact that it takes in my mind.
Yeah.
Did you not feel? Go ahead.
Well, so I totally get your point. I think, and before I even say more, I want to comment on the fact that I wish I had Tom Cruise's. If it really was 2 months, I wish I had his ability to grow hair.
Yeah. By the way, his hair's not
even
going to grow
within the
that much.
story.
His hair's not going to grow that much in 2 months.
Exactly.
That's fine.
Yeah,
Relax.
and that trust me when I tell you that jumped out at me real quick.
Yeah.
But no, I think your point about there was a lot that was forced that made us. When I got out of the film, I talked about how this was a celebration of the franchise, and I really meant that because there were some great moments of reach back that worked very well.
Mm-hmm.
But there were some other things that I think when they created those moments, they felt like, oh man, we should probably like do some more callbacks that really weren't necessary.
Okay.
You know, they weren't needed in the plot. I loved that in the first film of this 2-film series, they brought back Kittredge because that was a great callback.
And that makes sense.
Absolutely. But then do they deliver with him in any different way in this film? I mean, there was some, but it was still.
Well, in this film, no, but because you introduced him in the prior film, the fact that the director of the CIA, which is his now position,
right,
is showing up makes sense, you know.
Sure.
But the callbacks that I feel like were forced are like, so they call back to 3 and say, oh, he had the rabbit's foot. It's like, you know, and
I wasn't sure I bought that.
Right. It's such a retcon. It's like, I don't know that we need to do that. They, you know, they kind of retrofit one of the characters that was introduced in the last film to be, you know, Jim Phelps's son.
Yeah.
Okay, why? Like, I don't think
what are the chances? Is that
near zero, and who cares? It's like,
exactly. It didn't add
to
the, you know, and one of the things I think that was, I don't know that it was a purposeful thing on the part of the you know, McQuarrie and Cruise as they put this together, was did they feel like each film needed to be able to stand on its own? Yes, you have an overarching plot line, but I was very surprised when at the end of Dead Reckoning, the key was in hand. Right. I thought, sure, there's going to be a cliffhanger, but I was actually kind of struck by the fact that, oh, they completed the story.
Yes.
But now there's a continuance, right?
Correct.
So I think part of how they brought in the rabbit's foot, I felt was like you, I felt was very forced because they needed to have some form of explanation of how they were going to solve it and what sourced it. But I was like, but then there would have been way more urgency in the beginning, you know.
And even then, the way they brought it in, it's kind of like, oh, are we really? Like, I don't see really how that plays. Like,
and it was an expositional point that could have saved us a few minutes.
Yeah,
because I wouldn't have missed it.
Yeah, just about every movie except for 2 is flashbacked, and you know, gets a you know, episode 20 in season 8 of Friends level flashback where it's just like, hey, remember this scene from you know,
I gotta tell you, Paul, I thought about you as I was watching the film because I was like, he'll think it's hilarious that one of the movies I found to be one of my favorites of the series doesn't get any love.
No love whatsoever. And rightfully so. It's a terrible movie. By the way, I rewatched them all leading up to this, and it's just like, I did, and it's like, I hope they don't make another one with Tom Cruise because I really don't want to watch 2 ever again. I'm done with it. I've seen it like 4 times all the way through now, and I'm really done with it.
It holds up for me. But again, it's a standalone. Because
it is a standalone.
I would say the first 3 aren't connected whatsoever.
Correct.
You know?
Correct.
But then you go on this journey in the remaining 6, and it's like, okay, yeah, that tends to be how franchises go now, right? But, you know, back to the notion of callback, I thought the callbacks that were sustained within the course of the film were brilliant.
For sure.
But there were quite a few moments that they're like, okay, hey, remember this?
Some were forced.
Really weren't needed. Yeah.
The other odd thing for me, the omission was the White Widow shows up so important in 6 and 7, like absolutely integral to the story in 6 and 7, and completely absent in 8. And my understanding is they actually even like filmed scenes with her, and they just ended up getting cut. And it's like, I don't care what they cut.
Yeah.
I would have rather had the White Widow scenes than anything else that, brought up the White Widow or Jim Phelps. Like,
Yeah.
it's just.
Well, the Phelps character was nothing more than to get his assistant onto the team.
Right.
You know, but no, I'm so glad you brought that up, because it was on my thought process for what I was going to talk about tonight, because you built a compelling character over 2 films.
Right.
And then the absence of her in the final, it's like
it's a vacuum. It's a vacuum.
And I think their justification is the position she was left in at the end of the first film, but that gives her, there's so much motivation there to add that element of intrigue of what's this character going to do to get back into the mix.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just a drop ball. I found her to be way more a compelling character than even the villain in these 2 films.
Yeah. No, for sure.
So yeah, that was a big disappointment for me.
Yeah.
So,
but yeah, you know what? That's okay, because there was a whole second act that just lagged during this movie,
yeah,
and we couldn't have had anybody interesting appear.
Maybe they're waiting for the director's cut where
So,
they're going to add her 45 minutes of scenes that are,
sweet. Yes, let's do that. So
yeah, the second act. Go
ahead. So the second act. So this is one of those movies where the first act and the second act, the transition is not like, oh, obviously. So I'm just going to say that the second act is the Ethan has the plan is in motion. Like,
Yeah.
So where the first act is kind of building up the stakes, which
Mhm.
honestly was just the first movie. And then when they decided they needed to make it 2 movies, they for what, they had to reestablish the stakes, I guess. I don't,
Right.
whatever the case may be, when they got to a point where it's like, this is going to be a 4-hour movie, or this is going to be a 3.5-hour movie. We can't do that. We're going to break it out into 2 parts. And then they decided, like to Hobbit it, where, the Hobbit, a movie a book that could be a very good 4-hour movie. Instead, they made it 3 very mediocre 2.5-hour movies. They took something that would have been a very good 4-hour movie and made it 2, slightly not quite as good 2.5-hour movies. And so that means there has to be an hour of fluff. And I kind of feel like, the retelling in Act 1 leads to just a really long Act 2 of getting there, like, and one of the things I like about the Mission Impossible movies is that the scenes where everything takes place are very recognizable or very photogenic if you've never been to those areas before.
Oh, sure.
And there's just something that's not very photogenic about being on a sub or being in the middle of the tundra. Like,
yeah, that I get what you're saying completely, because I felt like, and I'll talk about this a little later, but the second movie didn't live up to the hype of the first, in my opinion. Okay. I loved it. I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
But it's things like that sort of muted the entire experience.
Yeah.
I have to ask you, do you feel like Act 2 ends at the end of the subsequence?
Right.
Okay.
That's the end of Act 2.
So with that in mind, the other thing that for me Act 2 was a bit of an issue is it was long.
Yeah.
And at the very end, it gives you this high tension moment.
Right.
And then immediately drops you in the third act, and you have no time to get ready for that. It's like the roller coaster drop hits.
Yep.
But then you're right back up another steep hill. And it's like, the pacing was thrown off for me in that middle sequence.
Yeah.
And it was some of the more spectacular kind of stunt sequences.
Well, the tension was at an 11 in those scenes, but which is weird because the storytelling was at like a 4. It's just like the tension, and I give them credit because I was tense. I was absolutely tense when Ethan was on the sub. I was super tense when they were having a standoff in the middle of nowhere in the in the Bering Strait.
Yeah.
And it was tense, but also I looked back on it afterwards and I was like, but nothing was happening. Like, I don't understand why I got so tense. It was weird.
And I'm actually surprised you got as tense as you did, because here is the other problem with that this franchise has.
Yeah.
We've been through this before.
Right. And
this
we know
underwater.
We know, yeah. And we know
every bit of peril. Because was it Fallout or the film before where they had that sequence he had to jump through that circular thing into the water?
It was the one before. It was Rogue Nation. Yeah.
Thank you. And so that's all I could think of.
Right.
And so right from the start, my mind is like, okay, we're only 2 hours in, so he's gonna be fine.
Yeah.
And that really is.
We haven't seen the airplane scenes yet.
Well,
so
sure.
he's
exactly.
Yeah.
My point being, though, that's, I think, a flaw in this design. You just you're rehashing ideas.
Yeah.
And okay, and this is the action movie lover here saying this, not out of overly being overly critical, but just simply saying it took me out of the mix because I know you're gonna make it.
Yeah.
Because I saw you survive another drowning.
And also it's like, okay, so 3 people need to do 3 completely separate tasks at the exact same time, and it needs to work.
Yeah.
And then in the third act, we have 3 people that need to do 3 separate acts at the same time, and it has to work. And it's like, I don't know. It felt like that second act in how long it took place.
It took.
And the just like, okay, we know that this is going to end up okay of it.
Yeah.
And honestly, I mean, the lack of, and there was tension, but no action. And it's like, when you think about second acts from prior movies, we'll go to Ghost Protocol. The key second act scene from Ghost Protocol was Burj Khalifa.
Yeah.
I mean, that's, exciting. And, and granted, there are 3 different people that have to do 3 separate things at the same time for it to work.
Yeah.
But it's like he's on Burj Khalifa. Whereas this, it's like, they're not even in the, they have no idea where each other are. It's just, there's no coordination. It's not a team.
And I'm willing to bet they probably they painted themselves into a corner, because remember, there's an actual dialogue portion where he talks about how we have to go separate.
Yeah.
And I don't know, it felt like something that was wedged in because of what happened subsequently to that. It was like there was, again, it affects the pacing, it affects it's not hard for me to stretch in action movies. You and I have talked about this often.
Right.
It just made it to be like, okay, there's no continuity here. There's something missing. And I think they also try to make it up by some of there's a fight sequence where one person is doing some form of action and then it picks up on the next clip of a different fight scene. And so, yeah, I think they felt like we really have to go hard on the edit and on the, action sequences to make this compelling, because we've been here before.
Right.
And that's one of the things that for me was a bit of a struggle.
But here's the thing is, and then from that moment, including Ethan Hunt needing to be in a decompression chamber for like several hours.
It was
like,
so fun.
Let's say at best 8 hours. Like they even say it takes the time that you need to be in a decompression chamber down from days to hours. And so so let's assume it's 8 hours.
Yeah.
And then they have to take the 24-hour flight from Alaska to South Africa.
Right.
Why they put it on South Africa, that's fine. Whatever. Okay, you put it in South Africa. Like that, a few more locations. You cannot be more further away. And but then they end up in South Africa. I'm like, okay, I'm in. Like, it's just like,
Yeah.
okay, just,
It's where the suspension of disbelief moment happens in the film, where you're just like, you know what, fuck it, here we go, and
fine, yeah,
which is great for someone like me.
yeah,
The I have to say, it had to have been an homage
yeah,
to the Bond films.
yeah,
That whole, because I'm not gonna lie. I
yeah,
when I saw that she was in the chamber with him, I'm like, this was not necessary, and this is not
yeah,
Mission Impossible
yeah,
ground we're working in.
right,
And
right,
so, because I thought it was hilarious,
yeah,
but I thought, I bet this is some form of homage to,
right,
the James Bond 007 stuff.
right, and to make Luther seem even less important, they put a giant a nu- a nuclear bomb in South Africa that was 5 times as big as the one we
Yeah,
had seen previously, but the
exactly.
exact same design. It's the exact same
Yeah,
design. It's just like one was the fun size, this is the
the
family
jumbo.
size, you know.
Yeah,
And so,
exactly.
okay, great, I,
And
I
that it took the same
it was the
sequence,
yeah, it was
to
except but
minimize its
more
effect.
because it's family size. Like
Right,
the
right,
first one, it was fun size, so one person could do it.
right,
This one was family size, so you needed 3 people to do it.
right. Because you
And
had to have everybody in peril,
and
and
it's
so,
bigger. And it's bigger.
right, yeah,
Um but I do love the idea of this doomsday cave where,
yeah.
I love that. I
That's
love
great.
that. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
it's
so they go into the doomsday cave and it's just like, God, this is so good and I love it. And
and it looks
we
great.
did it looks so good. And then the airplane sequences are completely overdone because you only need one airplane. But no, we get 2 airplanes because it's family sized.
But listen, this is where I think the brilliance of McQuarrie and Cruise, because it's both of them, I'm just gonna say it,
Okay.
comes in,
Yeah.
because they know the trailers
Yeah.
will be a giveaway.
Right.
So they know they have to give the audience something that's unexpected, because this yellow plane is all you see in the trailers. And so, and because, listen, again, I'm suckered in easy, because when I saw that there were 2 and he went to the red one first, I was like, oh, okay. Yeah, of course. Like,
Yeah.
this is, now I don't know what's going to happen,
Right.
but I know he's got to get there.
Yeah.
So, and that
Right.
sucked me in. I
Right.
I loved the third act. I thought it was,
I
minus
no,
the things that we
it
call out.
was silly
Overall,
but
it was
super
fun.
fun. It was
A lot of fun.
silly but super fun.
Yeah,
Super fun. And damn
absolutely.
it, I absolutely recommend people who enjoy these movies to go to see this in a theater
You
because
have to.
the
Yeah,
third act is so fun.
yeah,
And you forget that you had been there for an hour and a half to almost 2 hours already,
yeah.
and almost. But yeah, just go to the bathroom
Yeah,
beforehand.
I'm not gonna lie, I didn't feel the time like I thought I would.
Yeah, I felt the time in the beginning, but then at towards the end, it was like it picked up. Like
Yeah,
if
yeah.
you told me that the first 2 acts were 2.5 hours and then the last act was just 15 minutes, I'd believe you. I'd believe you. Well,
Oh man, that's funny.
any other thoughts that you want to share with the final reckoning, sir? Do you feel
Just
what
that I'm so glad. I don't know if this is a spoiler, but I'm glad there was a callback all the way to 1. That was significant.
okay.
That was so much fun,
Okay.
that when it happened, I exclaimed out loud in the theater.
Oh,
I,
nice.
I went to
Okay.
a 9 a.m. showing, and so
Oh,
there were very few people in the theater.
okay. Opposite.
And and it was a very small theater. It seated maybe 30 people.
Oh, wow.
And
Okay.
so there was about 9 or 10 of us, from what I could tell,
Yeah.
when I ordered my ticket. And everyone was being very vocal, in
Oh, okay.
laughing or exclaiming.
Sure.
And when that moment happened,
Yeah.
I don't do this often. It literally got a vocal reaction from me, like, oh my God. Like, I was
Right.
really excited,
Cool. Cool. Cool.
because I love moments. I get chills talking about it. I love moments like that. And I feel like they made it meaningful. And
Okay.
so, yeah, I just really, really was happy about that.
I do want to say if the final shot of the movie implies that the entity will be back, I
Ugh.
I don't want that.
I was really disappointed by that. I really
It's
was.
just absurd. It's
Yeah.
absurd. Like it wasn't that good. It was an okay conceit.
Yeah. If it
Um,
was a wink of the eye,
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
But
No.
I didn't want to walk away with the possibility.
Yeah, immediately.
Yeah.
The second they're done with whatever, they're starting a fire and they're putting that fucker in the fire. Like,
Yeah.
I don't don't.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
but they are, and it's I'm if I have to get to Mission Impossible 10 and then there's a callback to the entity existing, I'm just gonna be like, fuck, I don't want no.
Yeah. No,
Because now it's gonna be hanging over the goddamn movies forever of like, hey, we could bring back the entity if we wanted to. It's like, stop it.
Yeah. I mean, you know, when I think about the potential future for a franchise of this type, you kind of have to think, and I'm looking up something while I say this, you
Okay.
kind of have to consider that, okay, if you want to move on with the franchise in a different direction with different people, fine. I don't think it's going to be successful. But Tom Cruise is 62 years old. I'm not, and I only say that because it will be a factor at some point. But he's not aging,
Right.
you know, he's aging gracefully, I guess is what I mean.
Yeah.
So, you know, but I just think that I hope that unlike other franchises, they don't waste what I think was a nice concluding moment.
Right.
And I'm not talking about what we saw,
Right.
you know, the box and all.
So
what I'm saying is the plane was landed nicely.
I agree.
And walk away.
Here's the thing is when they wrote this thing, that was the intent. I have no doubt that was the intent. And then Paramount needed to find a financial partner, and it just so happened that the people at Skydance had an overabundance of cash, and so they decided to merge, and that is in the process. And so Skydance, who's been the major financial force behind these Mission Impossible movies, is going to be purchasing Paramount, who's the distributor of these movies, and it's in their financial interest to have Tom Cruise come back is all I'm going to say.
Yeah.
And I think the intent was, here's our, and this has happened before, by the way. Jeremy Renner was supposed to take over. Renner was supposed to take over.
Yeah. I didn't think about that.
He was. I
didn't think about that.
And then at that time, Tom Cruise said, I kind of wanted to keep doing it. And so he kept doing it.
Got it.
And then, and now they left it with, this is your team now. And they've said it many times. They said it many times throughout the movie. This is your team now.
Yeah.
And I think that they're going to be in a position where it's like they have to bring him back.
I do have one comment I want to make. The oath.
Yeah.
Did we have to say it 7 times because we'd never presented it in the previous 7 films?
No, we did. Making up for lost time.
I get it.
Yeah. All right. Here at Real Talk, we do not do stars. We do tacos. And if we feel like something needs a little bit extra, rather doing you do a half a star, we don't do a half a taco. We add guac. Why? Because nobody eats half a fucking taco. All right, Sergio, where do you land on the final reckoning?
Oh, this might make you mad, but I'm being generous on this one on simply the fact that of all the things we talked about, I could get over it.
Okay.
I could get over it. I could lean back, watch this movie. I could watch this movie again.
Yes.
I could watch both together and feel like I'd spent a great afternoon.
For sure.
This is, for me, the consummate action film that I love. And so production value, all that stuff was there. Great action sequences. I love some of the storytelling, most of the storytelling.
Yeah.
This is a 4 taco movie for me.
Okay, that's fair.
This is 4 tacos. And each taco, except for the last one, gets guac. Because I'm keeping it at 4 tacos.
But you're not adding. Okay.
Yeah.
For me, this is 100% a 3 taco movie. I would absolutely watch it again happily. I would happily watch this movie again, except I'm going to add guac for time served. It's just one of those things where it's like, you know what? These movies have given me so much love and enjoyment, except for 2, that I'm going to go ahead and add the guac for time served.
I mean this with all the love. I really do hope that we won't be covering a Mission Impossible movie in the future. I really do.
Well, we're going to be covering one. It's just a question of whether or not Tom Cruise.
Right. Good point. So
Sergio, wonderful as always to see you. We'll see you in 2
Absolutely.
weeks. So looking forward
Indeed.
to
Looking
that.
forward to it, Paul. Thanks
Yeah,
again.
we'll get to talk John Wick again. Are you kidding me? All
Awesome.
right. All right.
All
I'm
right.
giving
Take
you the
care.
boot. Bye. All right. I got a short time to do Lilo and Stitch and Friendship. We're already way over my normal time show, but that's all right. Lilo and Stitch. It's the live action remake of the perfectly wonderful animated movie that absolutely nobody needed to have remade in any way, shape, or form, including me. Look, I remember I was in my 30s or late 20s when the original animated feature came out. I was absolutely going to see animated movies all by my lonesome in theaters. I didn't care. I loved Disney animated movies, and nothing was going to hold me back. The only reason why I went and saw this is because of this show. The live, I don't mind if you're going to do a live action movie, as long as there's a reason to make it. And if the reason to make it is we need money, or we just kind of feel like kids today want to have something to call their own that's not the animated, like neither of those things are there. The reason for making it is something like what they did with Alice in Wonderland with Tim Burton, where it's literally like I I have a slightly different take on what's going on here, or I kind of want to do a alternate Alice in Wonderland alternate universe. What happens the day after type of thing, and it's fun and original, and I love those. Same thing with like Maleficent. Great. Tell the story from a different thing. Lilo and Stitch, this is just your standard bland Disney live action remake, and it's getting 2 tacos plus guac. I'm not feeling obligated to give it 3. I gave Mustafa 3. Why did I give Mustafa 3? Because it like at least tried to do something original. This is not trying to do anything original. It gets 2 tacos plus guac. The other movie I'm going to do is Friendship. Now, this is a comedy. This is a comedy that played at the Toronto International Film Festival last year, TIFF, and just absolutely brought down the house. It stars Tim Robinson, who is in the Netflix series I Think You Should Leave. And it stars Paul Rudd, who has been in everything, and you know him. And it's Paul Rudd just being just absolute funny Paul Rudd, like circa Anchorman. Like literally he plays a weatherman in this movie, but a cool weatherman. And it's Tim Robinson just fucking being Tim Robinson from I Think You Could Leave, one of his many characters, and I Think You Should Leave. And like the conceit is that Paul Rudd moves in to Tim Robinson's neighborhood. Tim Robinson is a bit of a homebody and has a bit of a boring life, and Paul Rudd sort of instills a sense of purpose and camaraderie by inviting Tim Robinson to like bros hangout, and things go wrong at the bros hangout, and that sends Tim Robinson, who finally feels like he belongs to something, onto a downward spiral. So this movie is really fucking funny. It just absolutely is really fucking funny. If you've ever seen I Think You Should Leave, and you've enjoyed anything that Tim Robinson has done, or if you love Paul Rudd and you're just kind of like, you know what, I'll see anything Paul Rudd is in, this is a movie you absolutely have to see. Everybody should see it. For me, it has a low ceiling, and the reason is because I've mentioned it before. I have a really hard time with movies whose entire conceit is based off of regular people making horrible fucking life choices, and those life choices just absolutely undermining their existences. And it makes me really uncomfortable. It's just me. This is a it's just me situation. I I want to love this movie. I cannot love it. I can give it 3 tacos plus guac though. It's so fucking funny. It's easily, it's the floor really is a 4 taco movie, but also for me, like this is this is probably more than I actually liked it, because I don't know that I'll ever watch it again, even though I found it absolutely hilarious, because the entire third act I was just so fucking uncomfortable. I was just so fucking uncomfortable. I couldn't stand it. And that's not the movie that's me. It's just a trigger warning for me. If a movie has people making shitty life choices and it undermines their existence, even though they were perfectly fine before, if not just a little bored, maybe, that's a trigger warning for me. I can't take it. I can't deal with it. So that's 3 tacos plus guac on Friendship. Thanks for everybody for stopping by. Always thank you, Sergio, for coming in. We love you. We'll all be back next week doing Bring Her Back and a Netflix movie, or actually an Apple Plus movie. And then 2 weeks from here, we've got 3 for, which I already mentioned at the start of the show. So if you just skipped into the 5 minutes past the start of the show and you want to know what we're doing 2 weeks from now, just go to the start of this one. All right. Thanks, everybody. Love you.